Hey everybody, it's Ruby here today, and I just wanted to tell you guys that I haven't dropped off the face of the planet, and I am still doing YouTube videos. I just went on a little bit of an unexpected hiatus over the past couple of weeks, especially after I'm pretty sure I told you guys that I'd be doing one every week and then promptly stopped. The thing is that I've had one condensed midterm season, and I'm just going through a second midterm season, so there haven't been a lot of books that I've been able to talk about or read. There have been some for like a children's lit class that I'd like to do, but I kind of want to do that in one big bundle. So I haven't really thought of any videos that I'd wanted to do until now. Another reason is that I was recently reading The History of Sexuality by Michel Foucault, which I don't actually have with me right now. I had to return it back to the library. And it is a huge book, basically. Each book is about 200 pages. There's 3 books, and they're very condensed, very philosophical. And so I wanted to read that for my own personal research interests, and I knew that doing book reviews on each individual one would be almost as boring as the books themselves. But I did want to do a book review on them just because they have been a big part of my life, and I do think that it would be interesting to talk about just to get some of that information out there. The History of Sexuality is basically a theory and set of books that Foucault wrote in the 70s and 80s. And he wasn't able to finish them before he died in the 80s. And this is basically based off of the hypothesis that the idea that sex is taboo and that acts or behaviors or orientation is necessarily good or bad actually comes out of about 300 years ago, with the idea of sort of controlling certain aspects of it, and creating this sort of like confessional idea that I think the Catholics had in the 1700s. So what he basically did is he took different elements, so the idea of making it pathological, so like Freud did, or that there's certain ills within ourselves, or that there's a need to control the population, so to have a large population in a country is good because then you have warriors and workers and that sort of stuff, all kind of culminated into this idea that sex is to be controlled basically by the state and by doctors and religious leaders and stuff like that. And the really cool concept about this book is that he goes through civilizations through the ages, takes bits from philosophers and plays and stuff, and talks about why it is that it's different then than it is now. So he did the Greeks, so their idea of marriage, their idea of romancing boys, like adolescents, and the regimes that they had to go through, and how those things were more about keeping yourself healthy and taking everything in moderation and having a certain amount of self-control, rather than the idea of an actual like ill or temptation within yourself. That's more of a Christian idea. And that changed in the Romans, where there was a lot of the same sort of thing. They had taken a lot of those same ideas from the Greeks and sort of turned them themselves, but this time they had made it so that marriage was a lot more equal. So instead of just like a political marriage where a 15-year-old girl and like a 30-year-old guy marry, and the guy basically teaches her how to run a household, and then they have heirs and he can sort of go off and do stuff with extramarital affairs with boys or other women, sort of under this radar. This time around with the Romans, they say that it's more of a joining of equals. So you have, although women aren't still as equal, they presented this idea that the strengths of men and the strengths of women kind of coalesce together into the sort of natural being, and that's sort of the hierarchy is the hierarchy of love is to have like this couple join together with romantic love, and everything else kind of pales in comparison to that, and to not have any other affairs because you should be able to provide for each other. And that sort of developed into the sort of idea we have now. You can basically tell sort of the romantic love that we have now is very much reflected in the Roman idea. But again, it was more about practice than anything else. I think that this book in general opened my eyes quite a bit. I didn't know that much about Romans or Greeks, and the only thing I had really known was, about like loving boys, and even though there was a lot of political aspects to it, it was still sort of frowned on, so you're not really taught a lot of that stuff. And Foucault definitely took the reins on that sort of idea and went, no, we have to talk about it. And it was a very enlightening book. I gave it 5 out of 5 on Goodreads, if you're following me on that, and you should. There's links and stuff. And I'm very glad that I read it. It took several weeks. There's a lot of stuff that I wrote down, a lot of quotes that I sort of collected, but it definitely shows that he was one of the first people to sort of take this idea and write it down and say, here, this is what we have. And you can see that reflected in a lot of other stuff now, where you have like ideas of like birth control and stuff, and sort of the sort of ideals that are going on in America and stuff is very similar to sort of the things that he was picking up on 30 years ago. So these ideas are definitely reflected in sort of other studies, and it's really cool to sort of see the beginnings of that. And of course there were other things too, like The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir, and those sorts of people were also around during that time, and Foucault influenced Judith Butler, so definitely great. Of course it is an academic book, so it isn't something that maybe you should read leisurely, or maybe you should read it leisurely, read it over the summer, take it one step at a time, read other books along the way. But I definitely enjoyed it, and I wanted to fill you guys in on what I was sort of reading. So I subjected myself to that torture and loved it, and it was great. Subscribe if you liked this video, comment if you've even heard of this guy, or if you'd be interested in reading it, and if there's anything else you wanted to know. And like this video if you liked it, and I will talk to you guys later.